Deputations by appointment. Christchurch Civic Trust, Professor Chris Kisling and Lindsay Carswell, regarding item 11, Botanic Gardens Spatial Plan.
Madam Chair,
yes.
the next deputation after us is a time constraint, and we're willing to hold ours and let them go before us.
Oh, okay. Yep.
If that's all right with you.
If it's all right with him. David Lynch. Yeah. It's our intention to go straight to item 11.
Look, it's been a bit of a challenge. These guys from the media will get a copy, will they?
Sorry?
Chaps from the media.
Yeah, it's our intention to go straight to item 11 after the two deputations, which is the Botanic Gardens Spatial Plan. Mr. Lynch, I was just saying it's our intention to go straight to Botanic Gardens Spatial Plan item number 11 straight after the two deputations, so most welcome to stay and hear. I do want to indicate too that we've reviewed the recommendations, and we will be looking at a period of community engagement and feedback to be reported back to the Social and Community Development Committee before within the next 3 months. So I'm just saying that at the outset, given that there's been a lot of interest.
Well, obviously my deputation was written without that knowledge. It's wonderful to hear that. Thank you for allowing me to go first. I have to be at the airport about 11 o'clock. Right. So I'll whiz through this, and so I can't stay for the report. But anyway, thank you for this opportunity, Madam Mayor, councillors, and Dr. Colleen Edwards for this opportunity. For those new members of this council, my name is David Lynch from Momentous Public Relations, and I'm here in my capacity as a director of my company. In my professional opinion as a public relations practitioner with significant experience regarding local government engagement, consultation, decision making, there appears to be no basis for which a reasonable person would conclude that engaging public opinion or options on the Botanic Gardens Spatial Plan through the LTCP would be seen as a legitimate, meaningful method for assisting the council reach a view either for or against advancing the Botanic Gardens Spatial Plan proposal today. It is not appropriate, in my opinion, to rely on consultation that was undertaken in 2007, and that before endorsing the plan, an independent review should be commissioned to determine whether or not those that were consulted in 2007 haven't changed their views, whether or not wider community consultation is now required in accordance with the intent and spirit of the Local Government Act with respect to compliance, statutory decision-making requirements in accordance with Section 76 and 81 of the Act, and whether or not there are now significant matters requiring consideration that weren't relevant in 2007. Only then should the next step of working through the detail of the spatial plan and the operational review to put a business case for inclusion of the next long-term plan should be considered. So some observations. As I've said, the plan was consulted some 10 years ago. Christchurch has since experienced a major earthquake. The City Council's financial position, sadly, was significantly challenged as a result of under-insurance. People's priorities have changed. Substantial changes have already occurred in the Botanic Gardens that weren't part of the plan, for example, the Ilex Visitor Centre. The Botanic Gardens is much beloved, a traditional English-inspired garden by the Christchurch public, and they rightly expect to be consulted on any changes. To not do so clearly risks the council being the subject of a legendary public outcry. I don't need to remind you of the recent public outcry with the government proposing the changes to Victoria Square. There is a simple test I'd ask you to consider with respect to your deliberations today, and it's simply, is it necessary? Is it relevant? Can we afford it? Is it something that the ratepayers, the people you represent, fully understand, support and are committed to going forward with this right now. I would also like to refer to the Mayor and her most insightful observations on consultation when interviewed on News Talk ZB on accessible cities. And look, this is not verbatim, but the Mayor said words to the effect, go back and re-engage the community. Everything is about what people think will happen. It's not what actually happens. The better outcome is to go back. With the accessible cities, all the public consultation was done in 2012, 2013. People, as she said quite rightly, have lost track of that. And maybe sometimes it's better to go back and re-engage the community, and as a result, there is a much better sense of engagement going forward. So I commend the Mayor for that very insightful observation, and given that it was only a few days ago. And I'm sure you don't need reminding of your obligations when it comes to decision making, that you are fully informed and satisfied that you have been given sufficient time to consider all relevant matters and to dismiss any relevant matters, and can therefore with absolute confidence approve the Botanic Garden Spatial Plan going forward today. If you have any doubt whatsoever, then the right thing to do is to pause, to allow the report to lie on the table until you're absolutely satisfied with the decision that you finally take. I think that's relatively reasonable. So what needs to happen? I respectfully submit that this leaves the council with only one option, and that is to allow the garden spatial plan, the proposal rather, to lie on the table and to commission the independent report to determine whether or not that those that were consulted views are still the same, whether or not the wider community should be consulted in accordance with the Act, and finally, whether or not there are now significant matters that require further consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Oop, right, catch your plane. Drive carefully.
I will. I'm on a 10-minute part. I might come to you to get off the ticket if that's okay.
That's run by the airport company? Oh, you mean here? No,
Yeah.
no, we...
No, I'm out here on a 10-minute part.
Hey?
I'm out here on a 10-minute mark. I did say seeing the Mayor. I hope you don't mind on the window. Thank you very much.
He doesn't have that I didn't realise I earned more than you, but I'll be happy to pay it for you. I certainly can't let you off a council fine, that's not my role. But I'll pay it. Chris, thank you, and Lindsay, lovely to see you both. Thank you for being so generous and allowing Mr. Lynch to go first.
Well, he said some of the things that I would have possibly said, but never mind.
But you did pick up that we have, if you look up there, you can see that the recommendation that Council's going to consider is to approve the Christchurch Botanic Garden Spatial Plan for community engagement and feedback to report back to the Social and Community Development Committee within 3 months. And I hope you understand the difference between the spatial plan and the management plan, yes. Because the management plan is what was discussed in 2007. Yeah, not the spatial plan. The spatial plan is just putting out the projects that need to be done to implement it.
Thank you for that and bearing that in mind.
He clearly didn't.
I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak to Council on this matter, and I'm reminding the Council that as written in our Civic Trust's mission statement, the role of the Christchurch Civic Trust is to promote the civic pride in Christchurch and surrounds by its ongoing public advocacy for good urban design and architecture, and by raising public awareness of the importance of the city's natural and built environment heritage. The Christchurch Civic Trust has passed its 50th year of existence, and in that time has made significant contributions in fulfilment of its mission statement. We're handing out to you today, councillors, a copy of the book City Pride Civic Trust, which bears testimony to the advocacy role played by the Civic Trust. We take pride in our past efforts. However, the Christchurch Civic Trust is notably absent from the list of stakeholders in the development of the new spatial plan, for the Botanic Gardens on page 9 of the report. And from the list of interested parties were absent, who were consulted. We would prefer to be invited into the discussion tent rather than have to find and unzip an opening in order to be party to the discussions on such an important Christchurch asset. At our invitation, Andrew Rutledge from the council made a presentation to our board last Tuesday, which was much appreciated. Tim Hogan, our secretary, on behalf of the Christchurch Civic Trust, made a submission to the hearing subcommittee in 2006, one of some 40 groups, of which probably about 30 were NGOs, submitting out of a total of 597 submitters. With this Christchurch Civic Trust perhaps the only one with a broad perspective of the city as a whole. That's over 10 years ago, and even if the authors of the current special plan consider historical submissions leading to the 2007 Hagley Park/Botanic Gardens master plan are still relevant, and that there is no need to open the current special plan proposals to full-scale public scrutiny, we, the Christchurch Civic Trust, do not really accept that this procedure is right and proper. In your reports that you received from the committee on March the 1st, that all who should have been consulted have been consulted under the confirmation of statutory compliance, we're missing. We weren't consulted. If we are so insignificant, well, we'll pack up and tootle off. But I don't think that really is the case. Maybe it's an oversight, but we believe that ticking that box was probably a little cavalier. Also, the significant status that's given to the plan, on that box that you're ticking, based on the consultation already done, which of course did not include us, or the more recently, as I'm making that point. There has been, as the previous speaker to you, an enormity of disruption and upheaval and change wrought on Christchurch and its citizens for 7 of the last elapsed 10 years since 2007, which warrants a broad public re-engagement, and we would say not limited to a Christchurch City Council selected reference group. It's got to go wider than that. Furthermore, Hagley Park has now been formally recognised as a heritage area in the heritage listings incorporated into the replacement district plan, at the insistence of the independent hearings panel, following the compelling evidence presented at the revised district plan hearings, but resisted by council staff because it would possibly inhibit maximising the use of the park as desired by the Crown in any manner the council saw fit now or in the future. Given that attitude, the public have cause to be concerned and therefore will wish to scrutinise closely various initiatives for the park as a whole, and by implication the Botanic Gardens, which perversely is not covered by the overall heritage status of Hagley Park. The Christchurch Civic Trust is also aware, as are many members of the public, that the Botanic Gardens maintenance standards have fallen. It appears to us that the Botanic Gardens are sadly underfunded and under-resourced in human capital expertise. Where are all the apprentice custodians? A rose garden full of black spot speaks volumes on the maintenance resource deficit. The few cannot fulfil the need and must despair professionally for want of a more generous staff complement. Before embarking on major renovations and capital works projects over a period of time from now into the future, we say that the first call on the council funding for the Botanic Gardens needs to be focused on the human resources needed to maintain and improve the presentation standards for the existing spatial layout. A botanic garden of this substance in the Garden City of Christchurch needs to be well equipped to perform its scientific and curator role. We support that function, receiving commensurate funding. A botanic gardens of significance is a venue for education and understanding. Whilst it would provide pleasure for visitors simply walking, sitting and contemplatively viewing the varied spaces, it is not designed to be a playground. That we question the need for substantial modifications to the children's playground area in the Botanic Gardens, as the Margaret May Family Playground has been created recently and provides very high standards for a central city civic facility. That reality appears not to have been considered by the Spatial Reference Group. Education for young and old on matters botanical is a function expected of a top-notch botanic garden, but creating secret places for children to play and not be observed is a very questionable objective. With visibility comes safety. The Botanic Gardens need strong advocacy for its ongoing protection and development. Things that go on outside the boundaries of the gardens will have impacts. For instance, there will be a dominating presence of a new CDHB acute services building which required a land swap and easement affecting the gardens. Access to the gardens from Hagley Park and the use of Hagley Park for access and parking for the gardens means there are cross-border ramifications that have to be managed sympathetically. Having a world-class botanic garden that exports its access problems into the neighbouring heritage status Hagley Park, potentially causing degradation within Hagley Park, is not a matter to be treated lightly. The Christchurch Civic Trust therefore wishes to see the Christchurch City Council, as the administrative authority for the Botanic Gardens and Hagley Park, re-establish the former high maintenance and presentation standards of the Botanic Gardens as the highest priority for spending of ratepayers' money on this very important public facility, to ensure it receives many visitors who praise it, and allow citizens to engage at this stage in the development of the Botanic Gardens Spatial Plan before any major projects are undertaken, and to keep the consultative door open for Christchurch citizens and interest groups to have their say sufficient to accept civic ownership of the spatial plan. Thank you.
Thank you. We've got a very short period of time, about a minute, right? Aaron?
Yeah, will the Civic Trust be submitting on the annual plan on the budgets around and the maintenance budgets around the botanical gardens?
I didn't quite catch the question, sorry.
Oh, will you be submitting on the annual plan, which is open now, on increasing the maintenance budgets around the botanical gardens?
Our board met last Tuesday and we didn't have enough time to consider that, but we probably, if I'm saying we haven't got it minuted that we're going to do that, but we might well do it.
Yes, I'd encourage you to do so. Thank you.
Last question, Pauline.
Thank you. When you mentioned apprentice custodians, historically have they been always present in the gardens that you know?
I can remember back in my youth where there were lots of staff in the Botanic Gardens, and they were going through apprenticeship roles with the head gardeners, and
Right.
we don't seem to have them these days.
So would they come through Lincoln University or Ara, the Polytech, do you think? Where would they come from?
I have no idea where they came from.
You just know what they do. No, I think that's something we should really look at picking up on anyway, because it's a good training ground and it's a good use of resource. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you both very much, and we'll replace you with staff and move to item 11, Botanic Gardens Spatial Plan. Thank you.